Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm David Rothkopf, your host, and I'm joined by our friend, the irrepressible Riley Fessler. How are you doing, Riley?
Pretty good.
I understand our friend Minna is not joining us today.
That's right. Minna's feeling a little under the weather, so we'll have to hold down the fort without her.
Okay, well, maybe you can do her stories, but, do them with that certain Minna something special, and I'll try to respond, as I would with Minna.
It's a good thing I've been practicing my Minna impression.
Oh, boy. How you feeling day before the election?
I'm kind of, it's a mix between I'm still nervous, but I'm relieved that we're almost at the end of this. I say that knowing full well that tomorrow is not the end, but, we're almost.
And how do your friends feel?
It's a mixed bag. Some feel pretty good. The more negative ones don't feel so good. The more pessimistic ones, I should say. But I don't know. I mean, I think generally the people feel good about Kamala's chances, but there is kind of an awareness that this is not necessarily in the bag just yet.
Looks like your home state is a little tighter than everybody expected.
Yeah, I'm stunned, but pleasantly surprised that Ohio is actually competitive. I've been telling people that I think Trump really broke Ohio's collective brains for whatever reason. What was once an important swing state just completely went red for Trump. But, maybe it's a sign that his spell is lifting on the state. I hope so, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, well, last poll I saw was like 3% on the presidential. But that's good news for Sherrod Brown, too.
Yeah.
Good news for the Senate. Well, why don't we dive in with the stories? What do you got first?
Speaking of Donald Trump, the former president recently indicated that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. could play a significant role in a potential...
Sorry. So I know I'm supposed to have a more rational reaction.
I don't think there is a more rational take than that, honestly. Hinting at possible actions against vaccines and water fluoridation if he is reelected. Kennedy, who has campaigned for Trump and expressed confidence about a major role in a public health policy, is a vocal critic of childhood vaccination schedules and fluoride in drinking water, suggesting that a Trump administration might reconsider these established health practices. Trump, while noncommittal, has previously voiced reservations about vaccines, aligning with a segment of his base that became more vaccine skeptical during the COVID-19 pandemic.
I mean, how can you even believe this? Here's Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a guy of just horrible character with a horrible background, with an actual worm in his brain, who does insane, crazy stuff and doesn't believe in science, teaming up with a president who doesn't believe in science and being told, yeah, you can do whatever you want. And, folks, if you are 5 years old, you remember COVID. You remember that every so often we get hit by epidemics and pandemics, and that a government response that is faulty, like Trump's was, kills not a few people, hundreds of thousands of people. 1 million people died of COVID. The estimates are that 200,000 or 300,000 of them died because of bad government policies. If Robert F. Kennedy were in the middle of that mix, the policies would be worse. They would be more anti-vax. Getting rid of fluoride in the water will cause generation to be born with rotting teeth. This is insane. And, it's one of the many things, I've often thought about making a list. Some people have tried to make a list, but there are probably 1,000 things about Donald Trump, any one of which should disqualify him. Yesterday he said, our allies in Europe are worse than enemies like Russia. It should be like there should be a trap door. Boom, through the trap door. Defending somebody saying Puerto Rico's a garbage island. Boom, through the trap door. Filleting a microphone on stage. Boom, through the trap door. being impeached twice through the trapdoor, leading a coup through the trapdoor, being a convicted felon 34 times over through the trapdoor, stealing national secrets through the trapdoor. There are thousands of reasons, any one of which would have destroyed another candidate, but which some Trump supporters actually see as proof that he's a rogue, he's a pirate, he's a bad guy, he doesn't, follow the rules, and God damn it, I hate the government. Let's get somebody in there to shake that up. But they don't realize he's stealing their money. He's taking it for himself and his billionaire friends. He's making their lives harder. People like them are dying. People like them are getting lousier service. It's crazy. And that's why tomorrow Kamala Harris is actually going to win, because people realize that. But, it's still crazy to me. Like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I don't know, maybe disagree with me, Riley, but he's like the worst possible person I can think of to be in charge of these things.
Yeah, I mean, the only person I can think of is somebody like Alex Jones, who also rails against poisoning the public water in terms of it turning frogs gay. But other than that, I can't really think of a worse.
What is it? Like, what is a gay frog anyway? First of all, how does a frog being gay bother anybody? Like, if a frog is gay, let him enjoy that. But how does he know the frogs are gay?
I don't know. Alex Jones spends too much time watching frogs, I guess. It's the only thing that makes sense.
It's absolutely true. He's aroused by weird amphibian sexual things that I've never paid attention to in my life. Maybe it's a gap in my upbringing. What's your next story?
Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban suggested that Europe would need to reassess its support for Ukraine if Donald Trump wins the U.S. presidency, as Europe cannot shoulder the war's burden alone. Orban, who opposes military aid to Ukraine, believes Trump would prioritize negotiating peace and has publicly endorsed him over Democratic candidate Kamala Harris. As European leaders prepare to meet in Budapest, Orban emphasized the necessity of Europe aligning with a potential, quote, pro-peace U.S. stance if Trump is elected. Orban's support for Trump has previously drawn criticism from Brussels, given his close relations with Russia and opposition to aid for Ukraine.
Yeah, pro-peace means pro-Russia. Yep. Orban and Trump are on the same side because both of them have the same daddy, and that's Vladimir Putin. And this is consistent with the remark I was referring to earlier, and it's consistent with the fact that we know if you vote for Trump, you are making Putin stronger. You are essentially writing off the sacrifice of all the people of Ukraine. You're making Europe weaker. And if you think somehow that's making America safer, you got it wrong, because an empowered Putin will go after other countries, and at a certain point, NATO Article 5 will kick in, and the United States of America, one way or another, is going to get drawn into that war, and Americans are going to die. This is playing with fire, and essentially it's doing the handiwork of, our enemies. The only other thing I would say about Orban is, well, maybe where the plane takes off for at some point in the next few weeks, when Trump realizes he's lost and he has to find a place that he can stay, where the government will protect him from being extradited to face criminal charges here in the United States. I kind of was seeing him, kind of around some, lake, isolated in the middle of Russia, wondering how he got here and why he's not able to actually travel anywhere else. But let's save our betting game on where Trump ends up in exile till after the election results are finally tallied, shall we? What's next?
Well, to take a little break from the U.S. election news, Moldova's pro-EU President Maia Sandu has claimed a second term after a closely watched election that highlighted Moldova's alignment choice between Europe and Russia. Winning 55% of the vote, Sandu promised unity and to serve all Moldovans, including those who supported her pro-Russian opponent, backed by the Party of Socialists. The election was marked by allegations of massive Russian interference, with Moldova's national security advisor citing massive interference efforts. High turnout among expats who overwhelmingly supported Sandu proved pivotal in her victory. Sandu vowed to intensify anti-corruption efforts and pursue justice reform, a stance welcomed by EU leaders and who congratulated her on the pro-European mandate.
Let it be a premonition. A woman supporting democracy, supporting government for all the people, beats her opponent, who is supported by Russia, who seeks to weaken the hold of the West over Europe, does so because of strong turnout from key groups, and by her election makes democracy and our alliances stronger. If only those exact same things could occur here tomorrow, it would be a good thing for the world. The Moldovan election result is a good thing for the world.
Well, shifting back, election prediction markets shifted in favor of Vice President.
You see, though, you
Harris.
Shifted away, and I wouldn't let you.
I know.
Like I was, you're like, oh, yeah, I have a story about Moldova, and I'm like, nope, that's about the U.S. election. Okay, I always call this national narcissism. The United States can turn any story about anything, anywhere, into a story about us. But today and tomorrow, I'm going to waive my resistance to that and say, let's just. Our story is the big story.
Yeah, no doubt. Election prediction markets shifted in favor of Vice President Kamala Harris after a Des Moines Register/Mediacom Iowa poll showed her leading former President Donald Trump by 3 points. The poll, conducted by well-respected pollster Ann Seltzer, prompted betting markets to adjust, with Trump's odds of winning dropping. Overall, Trump's estimated chance of winning the Electoral College decreased to 52%, while Harris rose to 47.5%, reflecting a notable shift since a controversial rally by Trump.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting story if you accept the idea that these prediction polls are anything other than a giant heaping, stinking pile of bullshit, which in fact they are. They are underwritten by people like Peter Thiel and other supporters of Trump. They are gamed by, crypto money and other kinds of weird, untraceable sources of money. And they are designed to create the impression that Donald Trump is actually in the lead in this election. And then they've, hired people like, election analysts like Nate Silver to validate them as an important part of this. Polymarket is a particular example to which I'm referring. The reality, of course, is that a prediction market doesn't tell you anything except where the people who are participating in the market either see the election going or want the election to go, and they are not reflective in any way of the will of the people, as you will see tomorrow. Anybody who is actually in those markets for real is a sucker. Anybody who believes that they have any real power to give us insight into the markets is a sucker. You are being played. This is part of a much broader scheme to create the illusion that Trump was actually in the lead, so that when he loses, people will then be able to say, he was ahead and now it didn't turn out that way. There must have been cheating. And then use that as the basis for challenging the election. What's next?
In late October, Philadelphia City Commissioner Lisa Deeley provided a detailed tour of a ballot processing facility, assuring journalists that the upcoming election would be safe and secure despite ongoing disinformation campaigns. With lessons learned from the chaotic 2020 election, Deeley and her team feel better prepared to handle challenges, particularly the false claims of widespread voter fraud being propagated by figures like Trump. Experts noted that disinformation not only undermines public trust, but also puts pressure on the election workforce, which has faced increased threats and harassment.
This is just another dimension of what I was talking about a moment ago. The Trump campaign knows they've lost. What the Trump campaign is doing is not trying to win the election anymore. The Trump campaign is planning to overthrow the results of the election. They're planning to win the steal, if you will. And they have a number of steps for doing this. And one of them is challenging results at the ground level. Another one of them is creating the perception that he was in the lead when he wasn't in the lead. Another one of them is potential violence and other forms of intimidation along the way, getting their people in places where they can hope for court rulings that go against the facts and so forth. And of course, we've got to worry about this. I think, potentially a great deal. The one thing that could make Trump's pushback, the effort to steal again, Big Lie 2.0, less likely to happen is if Trump's performance when the votes are counted is significantly worse than the polls are predicting. And my prediction is this: it will be significantly worse than the polls are predicting. The Iowa poll that you're talking about has people thinking, I wonder if the models that have been used by most pollsters are correct. I should add, by the way, that, there's another element to this whole thing, which is part of the Trump plot. And that is that in the past week alone, Republican-funded polls, I think as many as 75, have dropped. That's more in the past week than in the preceding 2 months. It's more in the past week than in the 2020 election. These are the polls that Republicans fund that are skewed so that they make the result look like Trump is doing better than they're doing. The question is, why are they doing it? To make Trump feel good? No. To make voters feel like he has got momentum and actually to affect the outcome of the election? No. They are doing this in order to create the perception that he was winning so that he can announce at some point tomorrow night that he was winning, and that when she actually wins, that he can challenge the whole thing. So this is all part and parcel of their plan to sort of cling or claim power. But, there's a couple differences between now and 2020. One is Trump's not president. Two is that a number of the states here in question have Democratic governors, Democratic legislatures, and they're not going to fall for this. Three, she's going to do better than predicted. So in addition to predicting that she's going to win, but, and smart money doesn't make predictions, but I have a week ago predicted she's going to win. I also predict that the pushback against her victory is not going to go as Trump expected. It's not going to have the traction that he wanted. And ultimately, it's not going to last as long as he thought it would, because it's just not going to work. That, again, that's like hyper optimistic. But one of the reasons I say this is Minna is sick and we want her to recover. The other reason is Riley is a very fragile vessel, and that if he thinks we're going to lose, he could break into tears at any moment.
You're not far off.
Exactly. So, what I'm trying to do here is no, I'm not. Actually, I don't care about anybody's feelings. That's what I think is going to happen. We'll see. You know when we'll see? Well, we'll start to see tomorrow. I might add, if you haven't voted, vote. If you have voted and people who haven't voted, help them to vote. If they have trouble getting to vote, help them get to vote. If you can volunteer, volunteer. If you can donate, donate. Run through the finish line. Sprint through the finish line. Let's have a strong outcome tomorrow so we do not have weeks and weeks of chaos that follow, and actually that we do not have years and years of the kind of chaos that we would have if Donald Trump actually were to win re-election. So, will we be back tomorrow, Riley?
You better believe it.
Better believe it. Will we have podcasts throughout the week talking about the results?
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. So, do you need NBC, CBS, ABC, MSNBC, CNN? Yeah, you do. But we are a great way to augment that with great experts. And I think by the time this week is over, you will say, those folks at Deep State Radio, they really understood this better than the others. They said the things that others wouldn't say, just like they did in 2022, just like they did in 2020. And so, I think you'll be happy that you came here and visited with us. We're certainly happy, aren't we, Riley?
I'm definitely happy.
Yeah, so we're happy. We're happy that you're here with us. We'll see you again tomorrow. Until then, thanks, Riley. Get better, Minna. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.